is your best friend. Rewrite history until the end. The mechanisms you offend. Collateral damage, unhinged trend. Propaganda, whoa. Advance your tactics, enact low blow. Propagandize, whoa. Strategize tactics, enact low blow. Claw your way inside the minds, erase their standpoints in due time. Dig your way into their brains, none of them left thick and sane. Propaganda coming at you, yeah, propagate and never lose. Brainwash, stack the deck, resistance, a tiny speck. Propaganda is your best friend. Rewrite history until the end. The mechanisms you offend. Collateral damage, unhinged trend. Propaganda, whoa, oh, oh, oh. Advance your tactics and act low blow. Propagandize, whoa, oh, oh, oh. Strategize tactics and act low blow. Claw your way inside of their minds, erase their standpoints in due time. Dig your way into their brains, none of them left thinking insane. Claw your way inside their minds, erase their standpoints in due time. Erase their standpoints in due time. Dig your way into their brains, none of them left thinking insane. Claw your way inside of their minds, erase their standpoints in due time. Blow, blow. Propaganda is your best friend. Yeah, propaganda, your best friend.
Hello, 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 and welcome once again to the Dr. Zeero Xiron Free Magic Secret Show, where we investigate all forms of magic. We talk about all kinds of things and stuff. We make commentary on what people are talking about in the occult world today. We talk about the cool book I wrote called Apex Unhinged, and we talk about all the cool music I've been making with Suno. We talk about the show in general, which if you click the playlists, you'll find playlist tabs for like all my videos, all organized, and tons of free magic secrets just for you, which will undoubtedly expand your horizons. I'm on a noisy street corner because we like to do this show live and raw, walking around these days. And I just smoked some Jesus OG. I rarely smoke indica, but I figured I'd switch it up today because it was the tastiest cheap weed that they had on the shelf that it looked to me, and I never tried it, and I felt like, why not go indica today? I'm always on the sativa. Why not go for the couch potato blah blend, you know? But it's actually pretty punchy, pretty heady. So anyway, that's what's going on at the current second. And I wanted to talk a second part of the videos, because the video I did yesterday was called Magical Mistakes and Tarot Travails. So this is a continuation, and it's going to be a little about some more magical mistakes that I made in general. Now, something I said, something to consider that I necessarily didn't when I was younger. I guess this video is about in the progression, your magical progression, and following your magical path, and growing as an individual. You get older, smarter, and you grow up in different ways, and you keep going up the ladder. So, the human species has been doing the same incrementally through its whole existence. And then there's a little marker in human history where all this great shit started happening. And that's called the Renaissance. Now, I didn't study the Renaissance enough. I would have found a bunch of stuff like alchemy and such had I really researched it and understood what was going on there. But if you don't know how it started, I thought I'd tell you real quick. And I can't remember the exact names of the story, but this is the story in general. So it got to like the early 1400s, and then you had Italy, beautiful Italy, just sitting there. And this is where the tarot cards began and started to flourish. And it isn't clear to me if tarot cards existed before, which they likely did, before the Renaissance kicked off, but around that time period. So, everything's royal courts. It's beautiful Italy, old world. It's getting out of the medieval times. And what happens is there's a member of the Catholic Church. He's some sort of clergy member. I can't remember if he was a bishop or if he was a friar or whatever. I don't remember. But he was some kind of clergyman. And basically he woke up one morning and he went up to the top of a hill and he started preaching to the other clergymen. And he's like, hey, no, I'm Italian. Because they all talk like that, as they do. It's not a stereotype. They talk like that. But this is Italiano, And he's like, basically explains like that, like, everything is so dour and piss poor and sad and darkness, and we are stuck in this age of darkness. And then he's like, we need to awake. He gives this powerful decree that the whole point of existence is intelligence, and that, God wants you to know things, and God wants you to expand, and God wants you to fucking reach things and be artistic and all this shit. And he gives this passionate, impassioned speech of life. And this, after so many centuries of dreariness and darkness in the ancient world. And then everybody listening to him was like, yeah, this is a good idea. Because we're Italiano, it's a good idea, And they go on the march. And the enthusiasm just spreads. And it spreads from city to city to city to city. And as it spreads to all these cities, they start reading more and doing more stuff, and they start looking to the past, and everybody starts getting more and more literate, and they start understanding how to speak Greek and Latin. And this is when they start to discover all the old mystical, magical texts, all the stuff attributed to Pythagoras and Hermes Trismegistus and all this stuff. And then the enthusiasm just keeps spreading and spreading and spreading until it like reaches other countries. And it's just this huge upswing of extremely bored people from a depressed, endless, dark existence of humanity. Just all kind of like woke up around the same time and said, fuck it, we don't want to be like that anymore. Let's try something else. And it's all because the enthusiasm of some dude who just woke up with that Italian spirit. And we talk about markers of the human race. That's a major, major marker, because this is where the seeds of modern occultism come from, and the occultism that follows, because it woke up that dormant itch. So remember, that's like you talk about tracing things back to the Keter. Tracing things back to the single point in space from which they erupted. So that's an important lesson to have, okay? Now, I want to talk about magical mistakes, various things, and I just wrote down some scrambled information that if I were a young dude again, or young person, just kind of starting my magical journey or just kind of into it, this is some shit that I definitely need to hear or need to be advised on. And as I said, I grew up in a vacuum where there was no one, I knew no one who could understand the things that I'm talking about today. There's no one who knew the stuff. And anyone who knew kind of about it didn't really have a clear picture of it. And nobody could explain much to me. And then I just began dismissing things that I should never have dismissed because there was no proper teacher to explain why it was relevant to me. A bunch of stuff got stuck to the wayside just because there were blinds on it, which is the blinds of occultism. You don't want to let the uninitiated in. They have to really want it and understand it and be receptive to it, because that's what QBL is about, to receive. So I was just thinking about little things, the way I used to think when I was a young teenage witchy witch type dude. And, the various ways I was thinking about it. Because when you're young and you grow up in a vacuum, you got a bunch of vague notions of the shit. And, you have books you can get your hands on that generally cover topics such as, psychic phenomena of all kinds, you know, ghosts, spirits, demonology, witchcraft, whatever you can get your hands on that's like easy to get your hands on at any public library, pretty much. And you end up with sensationalized books or like Mysteries of the Unexplained series. And there's this notion that things are supernatural, or sometimes you compute it. So I guess maybe early I was thinking kind of in that thing. But the truth is that everything that exists is natural. There's no such thing as supernatural. It's just natural. If it's happening, if it exists, then it obeys the laws of the universe. Nothing can exist that doesn't. And if there's some parallel universe that's the opposite of our universe, like a mirror image somewhere where all the laws are backwards, it's in reflection to ours, so therefore it has a meaning. Of course, it's all crazy, and that could be crazy talk, but... So yeah, number one, never think in terms of supernatural. All natural all the time. Now, I was thinking about how I had a lot more fun, maybe, with it when I was younger. Because I was more earthy, and I loved, the gods and goddesses that represented, like, pagan earth religions. They're all grimy, dark, earthy, like the Viking gods, the Celtic gods, German Teutonic gods or whatever. Like all this stuff. I loved the idea of them. I thought they were cool. I like that they exist and they were important to me. But I mean, they didn't like exist as real beings. Like I don't think any of them are real beings, and I never did. So it's just when I conjure their image, it's like a vague mess. It's like looking at a tarot card, where a tarot card has a ton of occult information all compacted into it, and it's just loaded with compacted information, and you got to understand how to pull it apart. All the gods and goddesses are the same sort of things. They're like tokens, they're totems of all kinds of shit. So I used to play with them and, think about them, imagine them, eat mushrooms and pretend I was hanging out with them as imaginary friends. But I knew they were imaginary friends, I love all that shit. So I realized the ultimate thing that I was doing, I was seeking Earth through contextualizing abstractions. And the thing is that you need to unify your mind to where you don't need to project the different areas of nature into different forms that are like presented by different goddesses and shit. It's all one. And it sounds like a bullshit hippie, I ate too much acid sort of thing to say, but you have to remember all is one. All is one. Everything compacts. Everything corresponds. Everything is connected. Everything to one central point in space of the singularity of what it originally was, and everything that is through it. So never forget that. It's being able to drop all kinds of stuff that doesn't envision the one, the absolute. I was too serious where I should be silly, and I was way too silly where I should be serious. And I guess that's maybe a character flaw, but also what has propelled me at the same time. But I was not as stringent about it, or now I think nowadays I'm ironically those things, and I don't necessarily mean to be. Whereas when I was younger, I was just kind of this wild sort of dude. And I'll talk more about the psychology of when I was young later, I enjoyed drawing runes, sigils, talismans, and such, but it's all about the psychological effect. It's about the action of doing it. The action of doing it stirs the psychic faculties in one harnessed point. And that you're projecting your psychic honed focus onto a sheet of paper or wood or wherever, however you're inscribing your mark, your signature, that it explains, like what I said, or what a goddess or a god would explain. In a sense, you're putting it into a visual form, putting it somewhere and making it seem distanced from yourself is what the trick is to get the psychic energy out of your field. is, you know, and you can say that's pseudoscience, Dr. Zero, but like, again, they're all props. All the magical items, all the sigils, the talisman, the burning of the wax, everything on the altar, the wand, the ritual dagger, the cup, every single bit of every single prop that you use is all just to hone your focus to one specific point in space and able to get your psychic energy from point A to B to travel in order to put that shit into the world. That's the ultimate idea of what's going on here when you talk about the psychic force that witchcraft harnesses and is very acute to and pays attention to and such. All magic is about that. So, you know, putting the toys away. Now, I loved playing with toys. At this age, I understand the runes are just toys, all these things. But of all the toys that we have to play with, the most powerful are the 22 Hebrew letters and their numbers hitched to them. And the other most powerful toy that we have are mathematics, Pythagorean, psychology. And I guess, wow, this is a larger topic to try to explain. So let me go through my notes here. La-di-da-deedle-dee. That's what I say. I regret that I lost the wheel of the year and that it wasn't quite... I mean, it was all there. The seasons were there. It's in your face. You're into witchcraft and you're trying to harmonize and gain gnosis with the physical universe. But the goalposts and why they're important in the magical timing, now I'm like the White Rabbit and Alice in Wonderland, where I'm constantly looking at a stopwatch that's clicking, waiting for the next moment of the wheel year to go down for the next major festival. My whole life has been divided in this, octa something way, where there's 8 spokes. So my life has been created into 8 pie slices, and not completely understanding how to pull that off and not being completely aware of it as much as I should be. That's one of the things that I think is a major magical mistake that I made that other people should not. Because when I did learn about the wheel year and all that stuff, you know, I was very much, when I was younger, it's like when you're younger, you're constantly experimenting and trying different stuff and dabbling in all sorts of shit that you find interesting, or at least you should be. Some people are very limited in the amount of stuff that they really poke around at. I was one of these people that would mess around with all kinds of shit. But a lot of the stuff I was doing was like, yeah, and it was like in one ear, out the other, where like I was experiencing so much shit and bringing so much stuff in that I couldn't hang on to the right things. So be wary of that as well if you're like that. Because I was hyperactive, a manic stream of conscious sort of guy, jumping from topic to topic, trying to ride the crest of a great wave and mastering nothing, yet dabbling in everything at the same time. But I guess it's kind of like youth defined. But, you know, when I had to pull it together and I didn't really have a direction, discipline, or a true teacher, everything was on me. And I had to reach the point where I myself had to step up as like the warden of my own prison, the principal of my own high school, the professor of my own classroom, the direction. I had to become the compass points. I had to become the discipline. I had to become my own teacher, and it was so apparent to me. So that's part of the long, laborious struggle that I had growing up in a vacuum, is I had to reach that point myself. And when a person, like I explained, is as sloppy as I was and as frantic and frenetic, it's a lot to really reach that point. Because the thing is, when I shoved off into the world in my early 20s, I became a journalist. I started writing for magazines and newspapers, interviewing bands, and I was a heavy metal fanatic because I saw heavy metal as a counterculture that is essentially reshaping reality which it is, because everybody involved with it. It's a new language, medium, mentality, brotherhood, sisterhood. It's a way to connect with people on such a deep primal level. And there's all kinds of magical ritual shit. And every single concert is a ritual of some kind. The whole setup is a ritualized thing. And every single note you play has a magical connotation. And all the people writing the songs, at least the really bright bands that really know the shit they're talking about, they're referencing all kinds of occult shit. So it's a magical art form. Many heavy metal bands don't think of it maybe as such. They think they're just playing music, they're getting out their shit, but they don't understand. Maybe they don't get it, or they think they hear the word magic and they think corny lady running the witchcraft store that stinks like patchouli and is wearing a big purple dress and does your tarot for you, but is just reading out of a booklet, collecting crystals and being new agey. So my whole thing was aiding the rise of the heavy metal counterculture until I finally got to a point where everything changed. Now, I'll talk more about that. Learning more about the act of creating, and this is the importance of reading the Sefer Yetzirah. This is the biggest mistake I ever made, and it happened, I guess. I would have to reveal the city I'm from that I grew up in, but I grew up in a major metropolitan city in the Midwest that was extremely industrial and dark and rotten and ghetto and falling apart and just totally broken up and just a total hellhole. When you think of late stage capitalism or capitalism gone awry, where I come from is like the best example you could ever come up with. So just take that as you will. And because I was there, I had gone from more of a witchy, earthy sort of way. And when I had entered the adult world and started working full time after I was like 18 into being 18, 19, 20, I just absorbed the darkness of the city that I lived in. And my world went from being trees and nature and mud and roots and swamps I allowed my world to become concrete, blacktop, barbed wire, and burned gasoline. The smell of burned gasoline and empty buildings and empty hotels. And that was my world. I became that. I became in gnosis with that as opposed to gnosis with nature. And then one day I woke up and I saw it all completely reversed and I could never go back. And it's a big part of why I left the heavy metal thing. So I also want to say that, I didn't really, nowadays they talk about left-hand path. Now there's tantric left-hand path, and then there's more this like Abrahamic left-hand path shit where they're talking about the infernal divine and all that stuff. So essentially I would be a left-hand path person had I understood what that really meant when I was younger. And I no doubt would have gotten deep into the Cliff-Oth if I knew what that was as well and how it worked. I was interviewing all these black metal bands that were referencing the stuff, but I didn't really pursue it. I heard about it. I was confused by it. It was just something that kind of kept getting popped out at me, and I never looked deeper into, because these black metal guys, when you interview them, they talk about Cliff-Otic this or that. They'll mention every once in a while, and I'm like, okay, so obscure black magic mystical stuff and like just everything, when you're like crazy heavy metal guy doing that, it's like you're like a gremlin promoting all these wild ideas. And I was just like, fuck it, like if it's pulling people away from the church and disrupting that, I want to be the saboteur of the Catholic Church, the saboteur of Christianity. So I want to lead everybody in this wacky direction. Not that I think Satan is real or anything, but it breaks the chains of all the fucking bullshit that you're run into. And but I think that reaching for self-deification. Now, see, the thing is, people reach for self-deification through the Cliff-Otic system. They think they can reach the black diamond. Because if you follow the tree of life to the tippy top, you become white diamond. In the end, you become black diamond. And it's, Satan and Moloch at the top, the duality, blah, 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 blah. What the Qliphoth actually represents is just a system of madness to make you fall apart. I think the people are taking this structure and then forcing what is truly a even more powerful race to the top of the white diamond. Because when you plunge towards the black diamond to understand yourself, and you have a reverse image in yourself, you have an opposite personality within yourself. It's a shadow of yourself. It's like the complete opposite of everything you are is a being inside yourself that a lot of people don't pay attention to or even think exists. But trust me, it's there. So the point is that I think that being, intelligence and being master of the universe, master of the world, all this stuff, I think this is all like a holy principle. It's shown like it's this unholy thing, self-godhood, self-actualization, self-mastery, all this, everything you want to put it. And the religions try to like make it look dark and evil. The true Qliphoth is, like I said, is a descent into madness, because people are kind of pretending they're putting a Hollywood sheen on it, a heavy metal sheen on it, trying to make it sound like this fun, rebellious, cool, countercultural thing to do. But where I'm going with this is that the direction that people are actually going, self-deification. I believe that whatever created the whole universe created intelligence, and it wants you to be your own God. That would be the prerogative. You're set up for the tools inherently to become your own like self-godhood, self-deity, self-axis. Ego is a good thing. It should be nurtured. It's just there's like ego is kind of neutral. It could go either way, and no matter what, when you boil down, everything is opinion. So the point is that I think when people are, moving towards this black diamond, I believe they're just increasing their existence in all kinds of subconscious ways in a million different directions. And I believe it's holy. It's holy. To reach for the depths of darkness in yourself automatically means that you're also moving subconsciously in that other direction, the mirror direction of both. You need to unify both opposites. You don't need to act on the darkness. But anyway, I think, whatever created universe wants us to be, if you talk about man in the image of God, however they want to put it, if man is in the image of God, then why should man not be a God as well? But talking about allowing my world to become concrete, blacktop, and barbed wire, all this shit. One day I just woke up and I said, I got to flip it into Eden. I have to flip it into, and then my world became grass, mud, sand, the sky, clouds, the air, everything, the swamps again. I just woke up one day and I didn't want to listen to heavy metal anymore. I didn't really want to listen to a lot of different music. I just wanted to hear the sounds of nature and birds and bees and flies and whatever else. I just woke up and I turned into like that deep woods Merlin wizard guy. And then I wandered off into the next phase of my existence. So, what else did I write down? Sometimes you have to be addicted to something or otherwise afflicted by something to move on forever from it. You say like, well, why is this happening to me? Blah, 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 blah. And it sucks. But once you have the experience of the shit happening to you, you're like, never again. And talking about, Aleister Crowley wanted to do an English language Kabbalah. And, you can't do it because, there's only 22 Hebrew letters and there's 26 English letters, right? So it kind of defeats the thing because you can't make a cube of space out of 26. But what you can do is the compromise that Aleister Crowley couldn't figure out. So I think this is the answer to what he was after, is that what you have to do is make a different hieroglyphic representation for the Hebrew letters that will make complete and total sense to the English-speaking world or to the modern audience. Like, for instance, the first letter is air. It represents air or breath. The second, and it has ox. Ox is the hieroglyph for Aleph, the fool. Okay. So you got to think of something else for that. But the next up is house. They're not gonna. The better analogy would be like backpack, like. And if you're like the crust punk tarot, right? The crust punk cube of space, you would have the travel pack. That would be the house. That would like what that's what I would see, because that so many different ways, or maybe not that, maybe, but or the Hebrew hieroglyph. Blah, 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 blah. No, you know what? A better one. Strike what I just said about the backpack. That's a little half baked. But I did want to say, like the camel, like for the high priestess is the camel. A car would be a better example these days. That's something that people would like figure out and make sense to them. So what you have to do is just find new ways to change around. Because yeah. So I'm sorry if that was really jumbled. I'm sorry if I'm losing your patience. I also wanted to say that, like, I'm glad. I guess one of my I would say a magical mistake was not learning what the Qliphoth was, but at the same time, if I had learned what it was back in the day, I no doubt would have gotten all tangled up with it and taken it very serious, or at least fucked with it and tried to go that way, and I would have just led myself to ruin. And the truth is, no matter how much you study it, you're not really going to get anywhere with it. Because the truth is that there's no Jewish text that definitively charts out the Qliphoth and all of its different paths, because it's a banned practice in Judaism. It's just like a vague no-no. So while there may be some hidden document somewhere that a handful of rabbis only know about, which, that's, very well possible, no such thing has ever leaked out, ever, ever, ever. And anything that has leaked about the Qliphoth through the official old rabbinical literature has been very scant references. And we know very, very little about it. And there's a handful of references, and some of those references contradict each other. So all of the major stuff that you hear about the Qliphoth, it's largely theoretical guessing game from occultists in later time. And one of the main progenitors of it is this guy named Kenneth Grant, who wrote Night Side of Eden. And that's a bunch of hooey, because it's connected to fucking Aleister Crowley's bunk ass fucking Kabbalah fucking shit tied into this fucking Aeon of Horus or whatever the fuck his shit is. The fucking Aleister Crowley fucking mental masturbation train, where he's just, that shit sucks. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I mean, it sucks really hard, and you should be able to fucking figure it out. So anyway, now it is true that the Sefer Be'er was hidden, and it was guarded by a handful of rabbis, and to the point where it was hidden for 1,000 years from the public. I have read that one. I've got the best version of it. It's very good. I highly recommend reading it, because in order to understand all this shit, first you read the Sefer Yetzirah by Aryeh Kaplan, and that explains the cube of space. Then you read the Sefer Be'er again by Aryeh Kaplan, and then it breaks down all the fucking intricacies that set up what the tree of life is. And then there's this dude, I think it was Moses DeLion, the dude who wrote the Zohar, and the Zohar systematizes everything that came before it into the tree of life diagram. So the cube of space is the beginning. The Bahir, spelled Bahir, is like more like all the processes of the creation of the universe and such, and then the Zohar is like taking all that shit and put it into direct action where it all flows. So that's the thing to know there. If I was younger, I would have focused more on alchemy. I would not have been concerned with ghosts, spirits, demons, entities, or the like. But how does that not pique the interest? And as far as all this shit of like, I love magical objects, you know, like cool things people got, whatever. But the magic is always in you. It's never in an object. Okay, it's all hooey. The magic's in you, dude. The magic is in you. And I also wanted to say, la-di-da, that now that I'm where I am, like I came out of the metal scene, I was thinking more the way they're thinking but even if it was this higher rise of the counterculture, I'm going to aid and abet it in every way. I'm this fanatic of this new vision, this brotherhood, all this stuff. I woke up, like I said, one day, and I went from the world of concrete and empty buildings and fucking barbed wire and the smell of gasoline to just wanting to be in a field. And once I went there, I opened up to everything else. All the magic shit returned to me. That's what I was hot about, and none of them could understand that because they hadn't reached that point yet. And where I am today, I've just drifted so far away from it that, punk metal, all this kind of stuff, you get to a certain point where you learn everything you can from it, and then you get older, and then you lift off into a completely another direction. If you don't lift off like a fucking dude in a spaceship traveling and leaving whatever, I guess you kind of just hang around the venue drinking beers, wearing a fucking shirt with some metal logo stitched into the back of your shirt and a leather jacket and shit. And you're just hanging around watching show after show after show. But then you lift off into the stratosphere and you end up obsessed with White Diamond, Black Diamond. And I thought heavy metal world would last forever, but now I can't really go back, and I didn't foresee that the perpetualness. So also I did want to say that don't waste time leading thirsty horses to water. I mean, give them the option, but don't sit there and try to fucking drag them to it. Because the thing is, like I'll say it like this. I left my homeland and I traveled forever. And I finally got to what I felt was the promised land. And I said that whenever I got to the promised land, to all the people that I ever knew along my life journey, that I would set up a situation where you could escape the dreary place that you live and the shitty life that you're stuck with that you don't want to fucking live. And I'll take you to the promised land, and I'll have a house with like a room or at least a basement with a bunch of couches, and you come here, live for free, find a job, get set up, and never go back to where you came from again. And that was always the promise that I sent out to all the people along the way. And when I finally got to the promised land and I established that exact situation, and I said, everyone I've ever known, talk to me now, it's time. I had that option open for nearly 2 years. And you know how many fucking people showed up? Zero of them. Of all the people that I knew from where I grew up and came from and went to high school with or whatever, everything in my early 20s, all the people I knew, only one dude showed up. And he only showed up because I picked his ass up and drove him there. On the way there. He's the only one who made it. And then that dude, he ended up croaking from a heroin overdose. but he always thanked me for getting him there. But the thing is, like, Thirsty Horses, dude, and the same situation, like, all the, you know, you hang out at all the different bars, the people hanging out at the bars where I'm at, and there's tons of people who look goth. They say they're into witchcraft, they're into magic, they're into all this stuff. They're really pushing that they're like witchy and they're listening to witch house music, all this shit. And, you know, witchcraft is like a nature religion. Unless you're one of the, like, you know, devil witches that, like, you know, you want to live up what fucking Montague Summers is fucking talking about and shit. But, you know, you're like, you should be hyped to go to nature, to, like, go to the most badass places and, like, everything that a witch should love. And then I find all these endless places and all these different fucking events and all this shit that's going on, all these different groups doing rituals that are going out to the fucking whatever, doing them in churches, doing them here and there, this, all these fucking people that pay lip service to all this magic witchcraft shit. None of them will fucking lift a goddamn finger or leave the bar. They just want to sit there drinking. And I don't want to sit there and call people posers and stuff, but it's just like they're missing the point of what they're supposed to be, like, really, really into. So I think that I have ranted long enough.
Pushing barriers, planting seeds, enacting the mind gorilla, howling hypnotic mantra, ultimate joke upon the earth. Playing online games forever, druids and witches lifting the veil, waging the mind gorilla. Some call it magic, the quest to unveil. Reduced to zero, it is not absurd. Reduced to zero, Pythagoras concurs. Reduced to nothing, reality blurred. Condensed to nothing, freedom assured. Gambling online games together, smashing barriers, planting seeds. Propagandize the mind gorilla, bellowing mantra, a joke upon earth. Playing these mind games forever, occult magicians lifting the veil, enacting the mind gorilla. Some call it magic, raw power unveiled. The game is the answer, you know that for sure. The game is a flower, propaganda endures. Reduced to zero, you know that for sure. Reduced to zero, Pythagoras concurs. Reduced to nothing, reality blurred. Condensed to nothing, freedom assured. So keep hustling our mind games together, molding the future out of the now. You just can't whip all those mind gorillas, absolute elsewhere, Stonehenge of your mind. Yeah, we're waging these mind games forever, projecting checkmate in space and in time. Yeah, combating these mind games forever, advancing our pawns with reason and rhyme. Now is the answer, and you know that for sure. Never surrender, you gotta endure. Now is the answer, you know damn well for sure. Never surrender, forever endure. So keep hustling our mind games together, doing the ritual under the moon. Keep on playing these mind games forever, lucid attainment of the year wheel. The game is the answer, you know that for sure. The game is a flower, propaganda